Hey guys, today we're going to discuss Tennessee Titans wide receiver Corey Davis. Davis, as we know, kind of underperformed last year as many expected him to break out as a really high pick from the Tennessee Titans. I mean, he's only 23 this year. Obviously, didn't play in 2015 or 16. 2017, he ended up playing 11 games, only 34 passes caught with 375 yards receiving with no touchdowns in the regular season. Fantasy Pros has him going in 2018 for 64 receptions, 760 yards, and about 5 touchdowns. That would make him their 28th wide receiver, and I think that's kind of reaching for him. As much talent as he has, I'm going to tell you why I'm a little concerned about him, particularly because of an injury perspective. I hate to think that this is another Kevin White situation, but we'll kind of see what plays out. So Davis was the 5th pick by the Tennessee Titans as a plus-size wide receiver out of Western Michigan. He was the NCAA's all-time leader in receiving yards at 5,278. Very, very, very impressive numbers. And he was coming off the MAC Offensive Player of the Year award. So he's definitely legitimately talented. There's no doubt about that. Now, he had minor ankle surgery in January after his college season, which prevented him from any pre-draft testing. But also remember that during college he had significant hamstring injuries that unfortunately derailed his freshman rookie campaign, which we'll talk about now. He reportedly injured his hamstring, although it's kind of funny because you never hear which side. If you look at some images, it looks like it's potentially his right side. But that was in August during a preseason practice, and he was sent for an MRI, which is pretty standard. If you look at the MRI images, you'll see a grade 1 has a little bit of extra swelling, which is usually white on the MRI. You can't see the fibers as pretty. It's very it's a little hazy, but it's pretty much normal. You definitely see some injury to the muscle though. If you're talking about a grade 2, that's much more significant. That can be a lot more swelling. You're not going to see the actual muscle or tendon off the bone, but you will see a lot of wear and tear, and you may see a pretty big hole in that muscle. You can also see this pretty extensively with ultrasound if you know what you're looking at. If I were to probe someone, I'd start them at the top, kind of near the end of the buttocks where the muscle inserts into the back part of the hip, and then you just kind of scroll down from there to get your bearings, see exactly which muscle you're dealing with. You see how much wear and tear there is, and how much swelling there is. Usually they're pretty tender over the exact spot where the injury is, so that's very helpful. A lot of these actually respond quite well to PRP in the short run anyway. Steroids not a good idea. You can elevate, you can put the compression wraps that these guys use. They're vacuum kind of sealed. We used them a lot at USF that were really effective and really cool. That usually helps to get you back sooner. But a grade 1 usually takes a good 1 to 2 weeks at least, maybe even 3 weeks. A grade 2 is anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks, sometimes up to 6 weeks. The issue with hamstring injuries in general is they are notorious for re-injuring. You really have to give them the full amount of time to properly heal. If not, you are going to be dealing with this the entire season. And it's just, they can be chronic. They just don't heal well. So when they do heal, you need to make sure that they're fully healed and you don't re-injure it very easily, because these guys are going to need their hamstrings to break away, to burst speed, to pretty much everything that they're going to try to do on the field. So you need to make sure that you don't skip the easy rehab at the beginning and think you're going to get back sooner, which then comes back to bite you in the butt because they end up getting put back on the injury report for a couple, 2, 3, 4 weeks with a re-injury. Now, It sounds like, based on initial reports, Davis's first hamstring strain in preseason was a grade 1, which is, as I said, pretty minimal. A couple weeks return to play. But the fact that he missed the entire preseason makes me think that this is likely either more of a grade 2, or they were really, really careful with him, either or. But he said that about a month later, he was about 90% recovered. If he tells me that he's 90% recovered at 4 weeks, then he definitely didn't have a grade 1. There's just way too much. That's way too much time to allow it to heal, and then it's still not even be 100% yet. But potentially what he meant was he may have re-injured it, and now he's finally back up to 90%. That could have been a possibility. Either way, as I mentioned a minute ago, that they re-injure very easily, this is exactly what happened for Davis, as he played weeks 1 and 2, but then he re-injured that same side in week 2, so he didn't even really get a couple weeks out of it. And this caused him to miss the next 6 weeks. I mean, so you're talking about a pretty straightforward, potentially grade 1, maybe a low grade 2, that not only led from 1 or 2 weeks, but ended up causing him to miss 10 weeks in entirety, from 4 weeks initially to 6 weeks after he kind of came back. So huge injury because of this. Now, I mean, yes, there was a bye week included, but still. The good news is that he didn't need a surgery, meaning he didn't have a grade 3 where the muscle literally tears off the bone and it can't be kind of put back. You literally have to re-suture it, re-sew it back onto the bone. Now, Davis returned in week 9 and ended up playing 75% of the snaps. Pretty good. Hopefully, he was feeling better at that time, and it showed you that he wasn't dealing with any hamstring injuries again. He ended up playing the next 6 games, but the issue is he wasn't really effective. He didn't really do much, whether it was a playbook thing, whether it was an injury concern thing, whether it was a scheme thing, I don't know. But he wasn't very effective. In week 16, he finally posted his first respectable line versus the Rams, 6 catches for 91 yards, but didn't get into the end zone. Then in the playoffs, he faced my Patriots in the divisional round, which they lost, and he kind of had his coming out party. He scored 2 touchdowns. One was a beautiful one-handed catch, and his second one was kind of a garbage time, but either way, still counts. So he's definitely got the talent. He just needs to make sure that he can keep this or both hamstrings healthy, so that he can definitely make sure that he stays on the field. So his 2018 health outlook, I will say that, as we know, hamstrings are super common, especially in the NFL, especially in preseason. I believe it's about 50 to 53% of hamstring injuries occur in the first, say, 6 weeks of the season, whether it's 4 weeks of preseason and 2 or 3 weeks of the regular season. As I mentioned earlier, if they're not allowed to properly heal, they are going to re-injure. It's almost a guarantee, so you have to take these seriously. You cannot rush back. There was a study that I'm going to refer to. There were over 1,000 hamstring strains were reported, as I mentioned, higher in the preseason, but only 12 of them were recurrent, which is very good news for Davis. So once he's finally done with this and he's just over with it, only 12% of hamstring injuries are recurrent, with only 6% of them resulted in a loss of over 3 weeks. So 94% of them were a grade 1 based on this study, which is a little higher than I would have thought, but either way. So chronic hamstring injuries, we know, can derail people's careers, but they also can, hamstring injuries can come and go. I mean, Odell Beckham Jr. dealt with them initially in his career, and then you really haven't heard from him in terms of hamstring. I mean, yeah, he had his foot and his high syndesmotic, his high ankle sprain and whatnot, but he didn't have any more hamstrings as far as we know. So what would I say Davis's risks of re-injury are in 2019? 18. I'd put him about 40%, so pretty high. I mean, we're not talking like Leonard Fournette high, where I called him like a 75% or whatever I said, but I'd say it's about 40%. I'm a little concerned. So, and furthermore, I mean, he's already been in and out of practice with some undisclosed nagging injuries, and this very well could be a hamstring, and they just don't want to call it that. Now, but from what they've said, he's looked like the best wide receiver in practice so far, which is great. They just had some joint practices or whatnot, but I'm definitely going to be on the lookout. If they even mention about a hamstring injury, I am avoiding him like the plague, because this could be all over again. Now, we know he has loads of potential. We know that he lacked consistency with QB Marcus Mariota. He could very easily be their number one wide receiver, although I'm still pretty high on Rishard Matthews, and I like Delaney Walker, and I think they have a kind of a cool tandem duo running back there in Tennessee, so we'll see what comes of it. But I would really say over the next week to 2 weeks, depending on when you're drafting, most drafts are coming up or very soon, make sure that he hasn't been mentioned about a hamstring injury. I probably, it won't reach for him. I might have him in 1 or 2 leagues, but I'm not going to go crazy, because I just feel like there's other targets that you can get, whether it's an Aguilar, a Mike Williams of the Chargers, even Gallup, or maybe someone like a Washington for the Steelers that actually have potential. Edelman will even be kind of a sneaky guy, and he's kind of in the same area in the mid-30s for wide receivers in PPR. For what it's worth, a lot of people have been comparing Davis's body type and kind of talent set to Brandon Marshall, who was a beast when he was younger and has been banged up, but he could potentially do something again this year. I mean, if everything goes perfectly together and Davis has a monster year, he could be a top 15 wide receiver very easily, but he needs to stay healthy, and he needs to make sure that talent translates from his monster college production to the NFL. So that's all I have for Corey Davis. Please subscribe. Let me know what you think, whether it's in the comments below or on Twitter or whatever medium. You can send me an email, my website at Dr. Jesse Morse. And catch me on the next one. All right? Take care, guys.